Okay, all right. Welcome to our first Global Affairs event of the 2017-2018 year. My name is Larry Thiel. I'm the Director of the Global Affairs Center of the GAC. Tonight's topic is the experience of one particular group of immigrants to the United States, Vietnamese-Americans. The population from Vietnam was pretty small, I understand, prior to about 1975, when some interesting things started happening. As of 2015, there were nearly 2 million Vietnamese Americans. Some of them came over the first generation. Some of them were born in the United States. But there's close to 2 million now. Tonight's discussion is part of a partnership between the college and the U.S.-Vietnam War commemoration, which seeks to acknowledge not just those who served in the U.S. military in that conflict, but also the challenges faced by the Vietnamese, including immigrants to the United States. So that's why we're doing this. Many of us watched the documentary that aired just in the last couple of weeks by Ken Burns and Lynn Novak on the Vietnam War, as it's referred to here in the United States. And somebody's reminding me, in Vietnam, it's called the Resistance War. And that's certainly the number of viewers and the amount of commentary before, during, and after that film tells us that there's still a great deal of interest, not just in that conflict, but in those who have some connection to that particular culture, meaning Vietnam. Our focus tonight is not on the war, but on the lives of those who came to the U.S. since that conflict ended. We have assembled a panel here to my left of 3 individuals who are willing to share with us what it means for them to be a Vietnamese American, a little bit about their experience, not just coming to the States, but their successes since they've been here, what they've been doing with their lives. And with us to lead that discussion, all the way over to my far right, to my far left, is Dr. Christoph Gabel, pretty close, okay, Professor of International Studies and History at the University of Washington. Dr. Gabel's research and teaching interests concern 20th century Vietnam and comparative colonialism and empirism in Southeast Asia. He served as a medic in a Vietnamese refugee crisis in 1980-1981, and thereafter he studied in Germany, Vietnam, and Taiwan. He continues to travel to Vietnam frequently, and I think he'll talk a little bit about that in his introductory remarks. He earned his PhD from Cornell University in 1966, and as I said, he's currently at the University of Washington, where he holds a joint appointment in the History Department and in the Jackson School of International Studies at the university. He'll be saying more to introduce each of the panelists in just a moment, but I just want to say a quick few housekeeping kind of announcements. Emergency exits are the doors you came in, as well as over here on the right, if you need to get out of here quickly. Restrooms are out of the main doors and off to the left, around the corner. There's coffee and tea in the back. Please help yourself. There's even some cookies there somewhere. I don't know if they made it out on the table, but they're there. We are recording this event for later viewing. So during the questions and answer part of this discussion, we ask that you use a microphone that somebody will bring around to you, not so much because you can't be heard, but because the camera picks it up more clearly if we speak into a microphone. And also so that we can get to everyone's questions, if we can keep your own brief and refrain from making lengthy comments at the start of the question, that would be great. And thank you, and now it is my great honor to present Dr. Christoph Gabel. Okay?
Well, thanks very much, Dr. Fuel, and thanks also to the Global Affairs Center of the college for having us tonight. I also want to acknowledge the role of Peace Trees Vietnam in organizing and conceiving of this panel, and here in particular, the co-founder of Peace Trees Vietnam, Sherilyn Prousseau, who is present here, and who has multiple connections to panelists. I myself organize study abroad programs in Vietnam at UW that affiliates with Peace Trees. It's a long and very happy marriage in that regard. Our panel, Changing Faces of Vietnamese Migration, Personal Tales of Challenge and Success, is a timely one. Migration is squarely in the public focus. and oftentimes the subject of contentious debates. It's a cliche, but one worth repeating, that the United States is a nation of immigrants. You can hear from my accent that I'm an immigrant myself. Migration enriches, it strengthens, it keeps the United States society dynamic. And the Vietnamese-American community is a splendid example of that truism. Migration brings with it a host of questions of access, of opportunity, of equity, of respect, of resilience, and of justice. And I'm sure we will hear tonight from our distinguished panelists about all this and more. When I was asked to be the moderator, I became quickly aware of our panelists, and I'm simply in awe of them, all three of them, and their very distinguished records. Let me introduce them one by one, and starting with my immediate, to my immediate right, Mr. Nguyen Kim Long, who is well known in the region, having been at the forefront of youth and family education initiatives for no less than 40 plus years. He took a Bachelor's of Arts in Vietnam prior to 1975 at the National Institute of Administration of the Republic of Vietnam, and when that state collapsed in 1975, he became a refugee and immigrant to the United States. He earned money and put himself through college and earned an MBA in 1979, just merely four years after arriving in the United States, an MBA at Seattle University. Was a math instructor for several years during that time, as he had just established himself, sponsored his recently widowed mother to arrive in the United States as well. I learned from his biography that Kim Long established an evening language program that focused on bilingual Vietnamese English education in Seattle schools. And he called this initiative the Chu Van An Bilingual School. Now, Chu Van An is the foremost Confucianist philosopher of Vietnam in the 14th century, and I think it speaks to the ambition and to the vision of Kim Long in doing that. His resume is long, and I just want to highlight a few things. He was executive director of the Refugee Federation Services Center for more than 15 years. He was the president of the Vietnam Friendship Association until 2012, and currently serves as president of the Vietnamese Mutual Assistance Association. To Kim Long's right is Ms. Thuong Nguyen. I would describe her as a food visionary and well-known chef and restaurateur in the region. Like Kim Long, Thuong left Vietnam as a refugee in 1975 at the end of the war. She can look back on 30 years in the restaurant business, first in Colorado, but mostly in Washington State. Her name is associated with the Chinoise cafes and restaurants in various iterations over the years. She currently heads the Chinoise restaurants in Issaquah and in Boswell, and also launched the well-known Wabi Sabi restaurant. And in her little spare time, I'm sure, she is also serving on the board of directors of Peace Trees Vietnam. And finally, on my far right, Mr. James Hong, who was born to Vietnamese refugees and settled in California and then Washington, I guess. He is a husky. Earning a BA in psychology and sociology at UW, and then an MA in education. In his young life, he has already a very long career as what we might call a community organizer and a community advocate. He is particularly focused on welfare and equity issues in the refugee and migrant communities. Those are dear to his heart, especially organizing around education equity issues. James volunteered for 2 years with the US Peace Corps in Cambodia, and upon his return joined the Vietnamese Friendship Organization, and now he is in fact serving as the VFA's executive director. And he wants us to know that he's also a movie buff and a soccer fan. And since I'm a big Sounders supporter, I hope he's in my camp. So please welcome our 3 distinguished panelists. Well, I sent them an email a few days ago, kind of outlining what I had in mind. But these are only guidelines. I think what should ensue from now on is a focus on these 3 distinguished panelists and their stories and what they have to tell us. And I would just simply want to give a kind of a light touch in directing the conversation. I thought it would be instructive and interesting to learn about a little bit about their upbringing. 2 of them, as you know, left Vietnam as refugees, and James is the child of refugees who had just come to the United States. And so I would like to start with Mr. Kim Long, a little bit about, to learn a little bit about his youth and what led to his migration to the United States, and then we can go to Twa and James as well.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me speak up with audience about the statement you're asking me about. I came to the United States in 1975 through the State Washington program under the Governor Dan Alvin, Cam Murray. We came over that with bare hand, and together with me, I have a 4 soldiers together get out from refugee camp. We get sponsor from the First Baptist Church in Renton, and we have a sponsor. And the first day being in the United States, it's very sad for us, upset, and what happened for my family. One day, I'm missing everything, missing parents, missing family, missing all the friend, neighbor, and it's everything new for me. And then I remember the one Latino person is a volunteer in my camp and come in to tell me, Kim, take a look in outside. The sunshine here, the life is not stop anything, just try it. It will be a Friday for all of us. And I learned that question. He helped me the first time I go to Department of Social and Health, apply for public assistance. I saw the older people on the line to apply the welfare and old people and elderly people and, handicapped people. I think that, it's not the place that fit for me. So he gave me advice, Kim, let's take a look at the refugee program. Give it you only 6 months public assistance. You need to learn English. You need to find a job. You need do everything to adjust the life in the United States. It's not is the way that we do that. So I tell you my experience, go right away looking for a job to be a self-sufficient, gain the money, and come back to college. That is the goal, okay? By that time, I learned very quick in front of me a vision where I go, and I was starting with my mission. I went to the Safeway the first time I applied for a job. I get it right away. And then, when I came to the college, it's very difficult for us in English because, in Vietnam, we learn English at high school and at the college. But, they just teach vocabulary, grammar, but no practice. So when the American talk with you, you not understand, or your pronunciation totally, they make them not understand. So the guy also showed me, when I came to United States as an immigrant, I learned English in the street, not in college. Try out him, go to talk with people, talk with the neighbor, talk with the friend. You will speak English very good in short time. And that is the way I go. I went with that. I can do up with, at night, we work separately. We get about 10 person as the night crew together. So I asked them, please help me. I want to learn English. Please practice with me. If something I pronunciation wrong, show me. And my next door, is a neighbor, it's an old elderly person. I come, I will cut your grass for you, but if I ask you one condition, I don't need you pay me. I help you out, but you help me in English. So later on, she become a very beloved second mother. She almost felt him bring book over here. I show you. And then that I started to learn English. One day, the manager of Safeway came in to tell me, well, I see you learn, I say with you, and that is exactly the people that Safeway looking for. And we have the program helping any student come back to school and study in business. Safeway will pay 100% tuition fee. By that time, I went to Seattle, EU, applied. I thought it too expensive. I cannot afford for, so I went to go. And I contact my own school, get sponsored by Michigan State University. They give me honor record and certificate. I went over there. I get accepted to the MBA program. 2 years after that, 3 years after that, I finished my degree and I married. When I have a life with that, I sit down together. The number of both people still coming. Why I cannot help them? I can help people. I will bring my experience to go with them. I have it very clear. Come over here, go to work, self-sufficient, go back to school. That's my 3 steps. I learned from that, and I keep that. So I went to any new refugee come in, we organize together, become a Vietnamese Friendship Association, which Mr. James Hong is the executive director now. We provide group orientation. All the people talk different issues with them. People, even we talk them how to take the bus, how to raise the children as a bilingual, bicultural family, how to help the kid after school program, and everything new to them. I give you one example. One parent, when the school say, Kim Long, can you help me to talk to the parent? The kid did not do well in school. The parent almost fighting with me in Vietnam, in the kid, you are grade number one. That means you are the very best student, outstanding. But in here, 4 must be the best student. So when the parent look at that, oh, my children do very good, but in fact, they're not good at all. So, everything is different. I came over here, I get very difficult to, everything, I learned, in here you use a mileage. In Vietnam, we use a kilometer. I use that a lit. In here, you use a gallon, ping, and everything, as you learn it. So, again, I use that experience to work with the newcomer. So, 42 years, I continue to work with that. I have, the idea, James Hong, his organization help people, immigrant, refugee, but we cover the last of the gap with that because now we have the Vietnamese second, third generation already. The parent with them keep identity with them as a Vietnamese. The parent, most of them work very hard, but they don't speak good English. The kid learn very good, quick English in the school. The family become a conflict. How you work with both the children and family and the parent and the school. That's the goal, the mission of the Vietnamese Mutual Assistance Association. We meet with the parent. We have a classroom for parents learn how to raise children as a bilingual, bicultural. But on the other hand, we teach the children how to respect the parent of them. They love them, okay? So because the kid in the school, they learn the American culture very quick. On the other hand, the parent does not catch up for that one. So also, we prepare for them in college. The college in the United States, it's very different in Vietnam. And most of them later on, when communists took over in Vietnam, the people work for their own government very hard for people to get into college for that one. So you need orientation for them, everything. We have the group that we call the college preparation. I picked up some Vietnamese students from University of Washington, from medical school, from dental schools, from pharmacy, engineer, whatever, you name it. And then each one for that, we will come to the school and work with a group about 5 or 6 students that they sponsor for. So the student will prepare how they will have it, a vision very clear before they have a vision to get it. I give you an example. The kid living with the parent, they do whatever the parent, they obey the parent. That is an advantage, good for the kid because they get a support from the family. But the kid in Vietnamese, they obey for the family, so for the parents. So when they do something, I don't know that they like that or the parent tell them to do it. Because when I ask, what do you want to do? Everyone I want to be a doctor. But in fact, that when I took them a trip, go to Harborview Hospital, when they see on the screen what the doctor doing over there, 50% was a drop out, say, no, I don't want it, and then see the reason of them. You need to be changed. Or next time I will bring to see the dentist, how are they doing? And then when for that one, you set up with them, you have a vision already. Now, mission, how to get into the medical school, how to get for that reason, I do a lot of volunteer with University of Washington. You know that my program, I proud about 2 years ago, whole state Washington had about 25 scholarships from Bill Gates. From my school, they have 3 students get it. So again, my mission, I continue to help the people, but in mind, I have a dream. I build a tree, like a peach tree. I build the tree, and I build up the people. Later on, maybe they graduated from University of Washington. They not stay in Washington, but whatever, they build the tree. Like exactly, I learned from peach tree. Then I learned very quick from them. So thank you very much. I hope I continue to do it because I wish the Friday will be the Friday for all of us. Thank you.
Well, I came when I was 11. I was the older child of 5. My dad was in the Navy, so he took us out on the last day of Vietnam, which is April 30th. Right out from Ho Chi Minh, Saigon City. I came to Indiana Gap. Well, no, first we got to Guam, and then from there, we were there for like a month, and then they took us to, I think that's when you have to wait and see when do they have space for you at which camp. So we got transferred over to Pennsylvania, which is the Indiana Gap, I think, camp. And I think we were there for another month. And meanwhile, we were just waiting for a sponsor. So we have to say which city we want to pick. So all my relatives, they all pick either Washington, D.C. or California, Chicago. My dad picked Denver, Colorado. His reason was he wanted us to be away from Vietnamese as much as possible, because his logic was that way we learn quicker versus trying to stay within the Vietnamese community, and then we tend to use it as a clutch or, like a handicap. So we went to Denver, Colorado, I believe by the late fall, and then shortly we start school. So our challenge at first, because our sponsor, there's some Vietnamese family that has a really good relationship with their sponsor. We had a really quick one because he picked us up, took us to the apartment, showed us where the house is, gave us each bag of clothes from the Goodwill, and then that was the last time we saw him. So we had to learn really quick. Luckily, my dad speaks some English because he was a Navy. He was a little higher ranking officer in Navy, so he come to America often. So he's the only one who speaks English. And then we all go to work. And then same thing, we went to apply for, I think, assistant. And my dad's very proud, so he's like, no, we're not doing that. So we had to basically figure out, either walk, take a bus. My dad, he literally worked like 3 jobs, and then my mom worked 3 jobs. So that leaves 5 of us at home going to school, and I'm being the oldest, so I have to cook every day because that's the job at 11-year-old. So I cook for all my family every day. Usually we do a mad dash 5 minutes before my parent walked in. We all start running around cleaning up the house. But usually they don't know that until they get home. And the house is clean, So we basically merge into American society really quickly. I have my best friend right away at 6th grade, and she's still my best friend. She, my first friend, and she right away took me in, and her family took me in, stay at their house on the weekend. We start going to see a football game, go roller skating, and then she teach me English. But we took some ESL class. I was the oldest when I was 11, so I was the one that took the longest to learn English. All my brother and sister kind of picked up really quickly. We went to college. I guess we didn't really rely on a lot of assistance, but again, being independent, understanding or trying to merge into the society, which is very new to you, I think with an open mind and, of course you make some mistake on the way, but I think the American people are very generous and they're very open-armed. So we didn't really have that much of a challenge, other than maybe the first 6 months. I think English was a problem. And so I got sent to art class and math class most. Turned out I was pretty good in math and art. So, so that worked out. And cooking, yeah. Yeah. So we had a really good, I would say, good break immediately when we get in. I think my parents bought the first house on the first year. And of course, we worked really hard, and they had challenges getting credit, of course, right? Because you don't have any credit. You can't buy. So we're encouraged to use credit card quickly. So we're trying to apply credit card. As soon as we get one, we start maxing it and using it so that we can get credit. So we learned that in the American way. And so that's what we start with. And now, after I moved here in 91, Seattle, to support or to help, just mentally support my brother who's going to UW for dentistry. So yeah, and then so after that, my other brother and sister came. So we basically are here now in Seattle. Yeah, our family is, so yeah. James?
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me. It's really nice to just be able to share my story. And I do want to emphasize that it's one of many different stories that you can hear in the Vietnamese community. Kim Long and Thua will have theirs, and they're all very unique, so I don't want to give the impression that this is generalizable to other families or other people out there. But unlike their stories, mine started out from day one as an American. I was very fortunate to have been born here in the United States when my parents came over as refugees. So already that gave me a lot of different opportunities and resources that my parents didn't have. And in many ways, it made it much easier for me to adapt and survive here. Picking up English, piece of cake, learning how to eat pizza. It's amazing. In fact, I had pizza right before I came here. And I'm still trying to get my parents to be comfortable eating pizza. I was in Earth Club in middle school, so we started composting before composting became really fashionable. So all of these little things that shaped my own experiences on what actually meant to be an American. And for the majority of my life, I think it was something I took for granted because I didn't have that nuanced understanding of what it actually meant to be a refugee or even what it meant to be an immigrant. But I feel like a lot of those identities now are at the forefront of our conversation as a country, and I believe many of us, maybe some of you in the room, are being challenged with what that actually means to be an American. What do those values represent? And how do we create that community and that country that affirms our values of inclusion for other refugees and immigrants who are looking to create their own stories and their own successes here? Those are things I'm really struggling with right now and trying to wrestle with. And unfortunately, there are no easy answers. I've tried Googling it, looked on YouTube, they're not there. And part of that is a little scary. And on the other hand, it's also really exciting to have an opportunity in a time now to really rediscover what it means to be a Vietnamese refugee or a Vietnamese-American in the context of where we are now as a country. So happy to help contribute to that narrative as best I can.
Our panelists have already touched on so many issues that, from creating very initial stability in their lives to starting out from nothing and building initial success, taking hits but moving on and building on one step after a time. The language issues. It's very hard for me. I mean, I came for grad school to the United States. My immigration status is very, very different. I did not have to grapple with not speaking the language, not having to deal, as I hear from some of your parents, with a loss of status, of social status. You have to suddenly, you are an established person in your home country, and you come back and you're starting from bottom again. All of this is very clear to me, how your life stories have progressed. But what struck me as listening to you and also reading in your life stories is how central community is to you, and how you're connected to communities in whatever way you define them. And I'd like to hear from you what community means to you. How do you define it? How do you rely on it? And what are the changing needs, perhaps, of Vietnamese American communities?
Sure, I can start. I think that's a very thoughtful question, so I do appreciate it. I'll start with, I wasn't always like this. Growing up, it was actually a huge source of shame for me. Just knowing that my parents were refugees and having an understanding that I couldn't really articulate at the time of feeling different, of not fitting in, not looking like other children at my school, and certainly being smart enough to know that my parents weren't fitting in. And that was something that I carried for a very long time. So it actually even surprises me now that I'm working at an organization that's supporting Vietnamese and refugee and immigrant communities. You should see the reaction of my parents. But I think where I'm at, it has come full circle, because I've tried the whole let's be American above all others and nothing else. And that was actually a challenge, because there was this other part, and it's very hard to articulate, the part that kind of embodies the cultural experiences, the histories, and the very complicated dynamics that refugees and immigrants do carry over. Part of it is the trauma from conflict and war, but part of it is the strength and the resiliency and the beauty of these different cultural nuances and assets that we bring to this country. So all that to say is, for me, where I am now with community is really trying to be better at serving refugee and immigrant communities who are still arriving here in the United States. And I draw on the experiences that my parents have had and that I've had growing up as a way to, one, be humble and be compassionate in understanding that those stories and those issues haven't just gone away, here in 2017. We still have a lot of challenges with Muslim refugees or refugees from Syria who are really fleeing some atrocities that I personally can't even relate to. But I want to use those experiences that my parents have shared with me to be able to better empathize and show compassion. And it's not an easy solution. And I think that's the frustration, because we're looking for an easy answer in how to deal with a lot of these crises, but there isn't one. Doesn't mean that a solution doesn't exist, but part of it means that we have the courage to have conversations like the one we're having tonight on how do we approach this. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Well, for me, dealing with community, I think because our family, the dynamic, the way we trying to grow so quickly away from the image of refugee, that the first thing we do is we loses our the way we dress. So after a year or so, I look back at our pictures, and the picture that we first came to America, we all dressed differently, and within 6 months we looked a lot different, and then within another 6 months, another year, you can tell that we totally merged into the American society, the way we dress, the way we talk. So I think we'll keep, progressing until when, for me personally, the way I go back to the communities when, for me, is I guess I found the group called Peace Tree Vietnam, which is dealing with the war, which I don't know a lot of because I was only 11, learning the pain and the loss and the reconciling between two countries. So to me, that was the way that I can relate back or give back to the community versus, and I thought that would be something that I could do. As far as your identity, it's kind of nice to tie back and find some group that, like if you're in school, there's a Vietnamese group that you can belong to, and then you go camping or do things with. I think those are very important, whether it's in college or like what James doing right now is for children after school program, or Mr. Kim Long, for him to help with the parents guiding the college kids growing up, because I know there's a big gap. I mean, especially when I first came, there was a huge problem communication with your parents, because I was the first wave. So being a teenager, I want to do this and this, and my parents can't understand what's she doing. Like, why does she want to do this? Or why is she not listening to me? And of course, I was the oldest, so I was always the trouble one, because I'm the first to do this. I'm the first to do this. And so it was very difficult trying to make that identity, because for me, I don't really relate myself to like a Vietnamese, but I do understand that I am Vietnamese and I do need to respect my parent, but their thinking is a little different than what I'm seeing. So I think with the help between the parent communicating with the children, and then being after school, kindergarten up to what, middle school?
High school, yeah.
High school. And then, so I think it's good to have that kind of support with that communication, because I do understand with my generation, there's a lot of that problem, and parents doesn't know what to do and things like that. So it's a good support to have within the community.
Mr. Kim Nom, you already talked about how you're counseling Vietnamese parents, Vietnamese-American parents about conflicts that might arise with the younger generation. And you're looking back over 40 years. And I was wondering if you could comment, I mean, have community needs changed over time? Since we're now talking about the children of the refugee generation now growing up, and they will now have children of their own. Yeah. What are the changing needs of Vietnamese American communities?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. You know, I with myself, you know, working with community for 42 years, I learned very quick. Now you see the Vietnamese community, they need a lot of change because we have the Vietnamese come to 1975. Now they have a Vietnamese third or fourth generation already. We have a new student Vietnamese come over here. Vietnamese also have American people. Then you look, they are the Latino, but they're not Latino. Look, they are the colored person. This is not a colored person like you think. And then many Vietnamese, they marry with husband or wife with a Caucasian or something. You know, they need a lot of change. First one, I think, between the parent and the children, they need somehow, the parent need educate to learn to understand the children. I always talk to them when the baby, they newborn, you give them ring milk. Later on, you must give them baby milk. And when they old enough, make sure that you give them eat rice or bread. Don't give them baby food anymore because the family Vietnamese structure, okay? But the big gap between the Vietnamese, some people are the victim of communists. When they come to the United States as a political detainee, they don't like the communists. They hate them. And the people that, you know, like Vietnamese business people, they come to Vietnam to do business in Vietnam. Great place to do the business. Now, so that is some gap, right? You can see it right there. The student come from Vietnam, come over here to study as a teacher at South Central Community College. I see they just play the group together. But on the other hand, you know, the Vietnamese student normal and over here, they don't play with them. So now, between the Vietnamese community, a lot of gap. I feel strongly the feeling that myself, I really need to break up on the gap, the world over. You know, we need to take a look at how to heal up people. We get painful, but the people in Vietnam, they get a painful too. That's the reason I don't care what people say. I always go to support the example, the organization Peace Tree. They heal up, you know, humanity in Vietnam. I give you an example. So when you say something like that, you need to talk with people, some kind of common sense to build the understand. You know, example, everybody, no matter, we have an elderly issue, we have an English as second language issue, we have a kid drop out from high school issue. One time we talk about, you know, like 70% Vietnamese not pass or what, so that's the issue for community. We make it some project that no matter what the people come from, first, second generation, working together. I give you an example. 2 years ago, if I recall, I organized a date, Thank You America, in Cambodia. You see thousand people show up together because they're working together. I learned that quick that, you know, when they work together, they build up the understanding, and then you can do a lot of things better. I use that model to learn more, you know, at the low-income housing. New Holly, example of Rainier Vista or something. Always the Vietnamese kids living in there. They isolate group, they together. They always fighting with Filipinos, Samoan group, and everything like that. I came back, I think that, why we don't build up the understanding between group? We have a lot of Muslim people in that, but we organize the day that we together, we share the culture, talking and everything. We dancing together. We organize the basketball team together, and we play together. Later on, I think that a peaceful go in there, where you can see the very mix of the children playing around that in that low-income housing. So my job is, I feel that working community, I try to cover all of the gap from community. I try my best I can with the volunteer people. When I speak up with the young people in University of Washington, we talk about our mission, our vision for community, for the future, how we can make it unite together. We will have a strong community. So now, one of the things that I'm working for, most of Vietnamese people, they be in there, to be a citizen, but saying, are you vote? No. You want to have the voice? Yes, thinking about even that one. I work a lot of projects with Mr. Jim Hong. We encourage people and resist to vote. We don't say that who you vote for, but here, you need to do the duty like other American to do it, okay? And I think that, it works. So I think that working with the community, we try to find some common sense together, some project that people working together build up the understanding. From that, we can cut down on the gap between community. I wish that, in the Vietnamese community, they working together, they support for each other, they will be a strong community like a Chinese or Japanese community in the United States. That's my dream. Thank you.
James already talked about the challenges that questions of identity bring, particularly as we move through the various generations now that have been established in the Vietnamese-American community. And identity, of course, is a big subject matter, and it is open to all kinds of interpretations. But at the heart of immigration communities, I think I would expect, is the question of how much of the kind of original culture, however you define it, can be retained and should be retained. And I'm sure that leads to conflict over generational lines. One of the questions I had of the three of you is, what does Vietnam mean to you? Is Vietnam broadly defined again, not just as a country that exists right now, but Vietnam, is it in your heart? Is it the community from which you sprung? Is it the community that you're working in right now? Is Vietnamese culture defined by the Vietnam over there on the other side of the Pacific, or is Vietnamese culture very confidently based in America as well? I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so happy to start off this one. For me personally, the idea of Vietnam is very abstract. I don't feel a lot of personal connection to the country itself. And it's mainly because a lot of my family, my immediate family and extended family all migrated here to the United States. So that's what I think of personally when I think of the Vietnamese community. It's the people, the friends and family who ground me here in Seattle and in this country. I have been to Vietnam a number of times, and every time I go, I feel more and more like a tourist, even though I can speak enough of the language to move around safely, even though I am very comfortable with the food. I love the food there, but it is still that feeling for me of being an outsider, knowing that my home is firmly grounded here. Of course, it's going to be much different for my parents. The first time they came back, it was in 2009, and a very jarring experience for them, both emotionally and I think like psychologically, to re-experience some of the trauma and some of the pain, but also a sense of relief that they were able to reconnect with old family and old friends. So, yeah.
If I can just push you a little bit more.
Sure.
Is there a tension, or are there parental expectations of you behaving Vietnamese, or falling short, perhaps? Are there conversations between you and the parents, or other young Vietnamese that you know and their parents, about what it means to be Vietnamese in America?
Yeah, yes. To answer it very directly, yes, there are those conversations happening right now. And actually, that's what excites me the most about this work, because I think really, as a nation, we are at a point in time where we are really confronting a lot of those values around what freedom means, what racism looks like, and how it manifests interpersonally and structurally as our institutions and our nation. And for myself and a lot of my peers, it's really exciting to be a part of that conversation because how it looks and how it feels as a Vietnamese refugee or a Vietnamese American is much different, not for better or for worse, just very different. So it's been really energizing to be a part of those discussions and shaping a lot of that story on what it does mean to be an immigrant or a refugee or an American. So I'm really excited to be a part of those conversations.
You know, it's a complicated question. It's a complicated question because I feel like I'm American, but I know that I'm rooted from Vietnam. I was there for 11 years, and I was here for 40 years. So you know how old I am. But what I was, but when I went back to Vietnam, I think it triggered that, oh my gosh, I'm Vietnamese. You know, like I remember my family still in Vietnam, back way up in north, very traditional from my dad's side. So when I get back, then they don't know how to react to me because I would be speaking English to my brother and sister in a bus with them, and then sometime I turn around and I say something in Vietnamese to them too. So I'm lucky in the way that I can do both. I can relate to both countries, but I feel like I'm American, just like everyone who has a root from somewhere. You know, like either you're from Sweden, Germany, or somewhere. Yeah, it's hard to identify, especially I'm the first wave, because I was born there, but really grew up here. And so sometime when in a Vietnamese community, and they say, what, you Vietnamese? Then I feel like, you know, like, did I not showing that I'm Vietnamese enough? Or, you know, so it's kind of a hard line to walk, because you're trying to be Vietnamese and an American. But I feel like I'm American, mostly.
And what I hear from your answers, and also what Kim Naum said earlier, you know, particularly for those who left the country oftentimes under very traumatic circumstances with their personal trauma, experience in the war, in post-war concentration camps, and all the abuses that came with them. For those, it is oftentimes a very painful question whether or not they should go back to Vietnam. And, you know, James, you said your parents, it took them 30 years. I know, Kim Naum, you never returned to Vietnam. And so, Kim Naum...
Yeah, I share with you, you know, when the first time I came to the United States, every night I slept, you know, I always have a nightmare when I'm thinking about Vietnam. Vietnam, for me, a very bad memory. In last day in Vietnam, we feel, you know, very, very upset because I don't understand why the U.S. left the Vietnam fall, you know. So when I come over here and later on, you know, I think that, you know, I need to leave that in the past, and we need to looking forward for the future. And like I told you, a Latino guy came to for the camp, explain me, look into the sunshine, you know, and you will see the Friday for all of us. I learned that real quick question. Now I'm proud to be American. I do anything like other citizens, working, raising a family, pay the tax, do everything. I'm proud to do this society. But on the other hand, I'm proud to identify myself as a Vietnamese, because the Vietnamese is a very rich culture. That's the country I was born. I was born in North Vietnam. Someday I just dream that, you know, if the Vietnamese, they love each other, I have a chance to visit my homeland. I want to visit the place that in the last day in Vietnam, Saigon, together with my soldier, 2 or 3 persons were together with me, but they died in that place. But I never have a chance to visit them. I talk with deep in my heart. I wish that Vietnam get well, get done, and stay away from any trouble from the China. Right now they want to attack Vietnam, and I wish that always I be proud where I have both culture, because I believe that in the United States we are the country of immigrant and refugee. Everybody come to. Who's a really American? The Indian. Do you agree with me? And everybody else is immigrant.
So it's 2 minutes to 8, and we wanted to go to 8 before we go to question and answer, but I thought Kim Lom's statement was just the perfect way to end our formal panel discussion, panel conversation, and just open it up and have you get involved in this conversation as well.
And just a reminder, somebody is walking around with a microphone. If you could shout your question to the microphone, and we'll pick it up. Don't be shy. Let's start. Where's the first question? You're all pretty brilliant. You're all pretty intimidating.
Let me, while you gather your thoughts, let me just follow up on this admittedly a little bit broad and maybe unfair question about identity and what it means to be Vietnamese. When I take my students to Vietnam every 2 years, I would say about 40% or so have Vietnamese roots, one way or another. Some of them were born and raised in Vietnam, immigrated recently to go to college and then go back as students. Others, like James, are second-generation Vietnamese. Some have fluent Vietnamese, some don't speak Vietnamese at all, some have been back regularly, some have never been before. And so I see this kind of range of reactions and interactions with Vietnam in my students as well, from Vietnamese-American students who come back to Vietnam for the first time and tell me, this is amazing. I'm in a country where everybody looks like me. And other students who, in fact, grew up in Vietnam and were maybe 10 years old recently, just a few years ago, before they immigrated to the United States. And so they're very familiar with Vietnam, and yet I take them, thanks to peace trees, to Quang Tri in central Vietnam, and we go to very remote places and on the Lao border into ethnic minority villages that have been impacted even 4 decades later by war, by unexploded ordnance. And it opens to them a whole different aspect of Vietnam, and not only to Vietnam, the country, but also to what it means to be Vietnamese and not speak Vietnamese, because you're an ethnic minority and you live in very remote places, underserved by the central government. So this is admittedly a very broad question, and I thank you that you engaged with it in that way. All right, we need the microphone for recording purposes.
Hi, this is for James. When you served in Cambodia, did you feel like your Vietnamese heritage caused a different cultural meld than having no connection to Vietnamese ancestry among the Cambodians?
Yeah, Cambodia was crazy, that experience. that was the first time in my life that I can remember my American identity being really challenged, because I'm not white, so I'm over there speaking very great English, and it's confusing to a lot of Cambodians to see this face, hear this English, and wonder, are you really American? So, yeah, it was a really amazing experience, though, after I was able to, in many ways, be that cultural ambassador to better articulate and communicate how diverse and how vibrant the United States really is, to the point where near the end of my service, I didn't have to tell that story anymore. A lot of the students that I was working with, a lot of the teachers, a lot of the local Cambodians were, they became those advocates on my behalf and for our country's behalf, because they had that personal relationship with me and really understood the complexities of our American identity. They were able to be that champion of it as well. Yeah.
Hi, thank you very much for your presentation. My question's to both Ban Yun and Long in terms of just what you heard from your parents growing up in terms of how much did they speak of, the home country. I mean, especially for Ban Yun, that you were 11. So, I mean, I imagine your memories were low, but your father obviously having been in the Navy and having those experiences, I'd just love to hear a little more about that.
Oh.
James, would you answer first?
Well, I hear these stories, and I can see the images, because my dad from the north, and 1945, is that when you're supposed to walk towards south and have a meeting place? That's where you're going to be, if you want to be, what do you call that? Freedom, being in the south. And his family decided not to. And so he had to, after the cutoff, he was 18. He literally walked from all the way around Cambodia through Vietnam down to south to escape. So he went all the way around, and he walked at night and sleep daytime. And he would tell me that he would sleep on a tree, and then the villager would have to hide them at daytime. So then he'll tell me these stories, like when the Japanese were bombing them, that they would have to run at night when they go to school with the chair in the back, because the school would move. The school location would move nightly because of the bombing. And so I kind of relate to this when I was watching Vietnam War, right? A couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about the bombing and all this, and I was like, just the image is so close, and I never know what they are until I see these footage, right? Because we never see these footage before. And I think it's recently being put out by the VC, right? And then he would tell me where he came from is like northern Vietnam, where all the bamboo was so tightly grown that the bird couldn't flew through it. And then that where you're born, which village it is, that's where they can trace your ancestor at. And that's where he came from. And so that he had to do all this, took us all the way around to south, then went to America, and here we all are. And that, he always makes sure that we don't forget where we came from. Where is my, village, where I came from, and all this. I really appreciate of that, because without that little glimpse of story, I would have never known. And unfortunately, he passed away, both my parents. So I hold on to those little stories, and then I pass them to my children. Of course, the whole time they didn't realize I was Vietnamese.
What they think you were?
I thought I told them. And then my sister, I know, and my daughter had to interview me for some reason for her project, and she's like, "Mom, I didn't know you're Vietnamese." I was like, so it's, but I really appreciate that kind of thing and pass along, because we need to know where we come from. I mean, it's really important. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that I was born North Vietnam, and by the time I was born, the World War II by that time, between French and Japan, they fighting together, and then we have a communist too. They starting to demand the independent country for Vietnam. So the Vietnamese people, I remember North Vietnam is a victim of everything from French country, from Japan, from communists too. We run from North Vietnam to South Vietnam as a refugee too. My family lost everything for that one, and we went to Saigon City. We're starting everything new again. I learned that experience. And then now, after I finished school, I worked with high ranking of the government by that time, but suddenly I left Vietnam. I come over here. I do every labor work to help me, to support me, to be self-sufficient in the United States. I learned experience. But on the other hand, my son always asks me, why you want to be, your identity is the Vietnamese? I say, no, we have a long history. And that is American about, you know. This is a country come from many people from all the world to build up America. Yes, I'm glad when you be proud you're American, but you should be know where your root is. Where do you come from? The country have a long history fighting with Chinese and fighting with French country, Japan, and finally we get independent. Now, even the communists took over Vietnam, but I looked at the Vietnamese is a victim for everything. So we always think about people in the country. They need to heal up. A lot of things, you know, we can do, whatever we can do to help the country. That is the why you can identify how relation country and yourself, love your people, take care of your people, whatever you can. Thank you.
All of you. So I was fortunate to didn't experience the war and blessed to be in America. And growing up, I hear these stories all the time, and it's nothing but pain. And now I hear stories being told again. I actually don't want to watch the can burn. It doesn't have I'm not comfortable. You know. I want to how you feel when this topic is being brought up, because I feel like it's not going to get away from us this lifetime. I don't know, because every time we talk about it, it's nothing but pain, right? And it seems we identify with that war so much. So I don't know how, this topic, how do you feel? What are your thoughts?
So I can definitely relate. You know, when I think about the war, when I think about my parents' experiences, it is very uncomfortable. And frankly, sometimes it would be easier just to watch Netflix and forget about it. And as uncomfortable as it might be, I think we have to be okay with that if we really want to learn and grow and move forward, because that might be the experiences that we have and that our parents have, but it's certainly not the exception. There's a lot of things that I've done in my life that I'm not proud of, a lot that we as a country have done that I'm not proud of. But unless we have the courage to confront these difficult issues and have these very hard and challenging conversations, I don't think we will be able to move forward as a community and as a country. It doesn't mean that, you know, I expect everyone to be on call 24/7 to, you know, pick up the phone and talk about trauma or war or conflict or racism. But I think we need to have an openness and a willingness at some point in our lives to be able to explore these issues with a little bit of authenticity and with a little bit of vulnerability, because there's just no comfortable answer when we're dealing with very serious, very difficult, and very challenging topics.
Yeah, I agree. It's the experience. It's where I came from, because I came from a war country, that it makes me who I am. So I am a little bit unique, I think, and even the next generation doesn't get the same authenticity. And I think because that's what makes Americans so great, is we are so unique where we came from. And because we understand war and we know the pain, we don't want to do that. You know, we see any kind of conflict, we want to resolve. We don't want to be in the war. because we know that all it does is it hurt both sides. So I think it's a good thing to have that experience, but it is hard to go back to the old wound. But I have to be okay with it. It took me a while I can't even watch a war movie, because just that feeling would just bring back the feeling of that trauma, I guess, the fear, flight for life type of thing. But I'm slowly getting better at it. I just have to deal with it. And I hope what I felt and how I experienced things will help the future, will help others. And just, understand that war is not a good thing. And move on.
Thank you for answering your question. Every time I think of Vietnam War, it's kind of painful because I stayed in Saigon until the last day. My group almost passed away. All of my friends, you think that we just have a reunion class in high school. Now 60 students in the same class. Now we count only about 10% still alive, and 50% die in Vietnam War. It's kind of very, very painful. But I'm thinking, every time thinking about that, at night I cannot sleep too. But I look into, is that still painful? Is that because that we angry for each other for no reason? Because something wrong makes some decision from North Vietnam and U.S. too, and Vietnam government too, and we all a victim. So the victim is the Vietnamese people, and then our goal, our mission, is to feel the pain with peaceful, with love. That I like. Thank you.
What is your advice to other immigrants from other cultures? For example, I'm German-American. My grandfather came over after World War II. They had some difficulties twice in the early 20th century, but that's not the reason we didn't talk about it. Our experience, my father's experience growing up, was very much like yours. They wanted to integrate very quickly into American society. So, but you spoke positively of the need to try to reconnect and to think about these things. Is that your advice for people coming from Germany, in my case, or someone coming from Laos, right next door? They had some pretty traumatic experiences about the same time too, or Cambodia, or pick your country. What is your advice for other hyphenated Americans for dealing with their identity?
Yeah, I think for me, the way I was able to explore it was to better understand it was to talk about it, either with my parents or with my friends and my family. And it doesn't mean that it's an easy conversation or one that I was prepared to have when I was young. I think that's the nuance that we really have to acknowledge, that this is not like a developmental stage. It's not like, child turns 2, suddenly walks, and then, oh, you're 11 now, and you can talk about identity and culture. I think we only arrive at these experiences by engaging in those experiences with other people. I don't think you can do it in isolation. But again, I think when we're talking about those who are refugees, people who are fleeing war or conflict, violence and trauma, it's a much more raw and emotional reaction. And I think we need to create spaces for those individuals, whether they're survivors, refugees, or even war veterans, to process that and try to create as much of a support system as we can, so that when they are ready to have those conversations, we're open to listen.
I agree with James. I think talk about it, have a support system. Don't isolate, for sure. And, learn as much as you can with the new culture, but keep your root and still celebrate it. And I think that's because you need your identity, I think, and not lose it. But I agree. I mean, I think you need to talk about it.
Thank you. With me, I think that we still continue to keep our children, our family, keep your identity as a Vietnamese, teach them the culture, teach them the Vietnamese language. And on the other hand, we raise them as a bilingual, bicultural. And I think that now you see in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, we have some people so sad in the United States. But on the other hand, in the country, a lot of people are very poor. Kids cannot afford to have the meal at the school too. Many things you can help, So that's the reason I involve with the most any activity from Vietnamese community, the raising fund to helping children, family, elderly people in the homeland. I hope that whatever we can heal up, the people do it because they own, both of us, we are the victim of the war. I hope that, in the United States too, we need to be very careful in the future. The advice was that we select the people do on politics, be helpers, make sure they really use the Vietnam War or any kind of war as a painful. They need to be prepared, what happened. We don't want to see another victim like a Vietnamese, the victim come to the United States again. So that is the experience we learned. Thank you.
So I do have a kind of a question. We have students from the Evergreen School here in Shoreline that will be making a trip to Vietnam. Do you have any advice for them or anyone that's wanting to travel to Vietnam or any insights about the Vietnamese culture they should know before going?
Let's start over here. I need to think about this. Talk, come on. Any advice
Advice?
for traveling to Vietnam?
Oh. I would say it's not that complicated. You have to come with an open mind, like a friend of mine said. You have to come and take a breath and just take it in and welcome. It's, the people is very friendly. It's very safe. I would do a lot of research so you know where you're going and things like that. And what kind of hospitality that you're interested in, whether 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, I guess. But I went there 3-4 times. Never get sick, and the people are amazing, and the food is really good, and the culture. It just merge yourself and just enjoy. Just take it in.
For myself, I never returned to Vietnam, but I watch it in TV and news all the time. I just let you know that the Vietnamese food is wonderful. The people in Vietnam very friendly, and then the Vietnamese culture is very rich. And I was in soldier, a lot of time, like a springtime, I went one place in the mountain. You can see the flower have a yellow color. They call mai, blowing whatever, you cannot believe it. So indicate that you can say that the Japanese, they plowing because they have a serry plumbing, and Vietnamese, they have that kind of flower in spring. And, Vietnam, they have some high place like a Đà Lạt, the weather almost like in Seattle, beautiful. We call here the Evergreen City, and they call their Evergreen City too, So the Vietnamese, they are very fluent, the American culture, because you remember one time the Vietnamese have more than 500,000 American GI in there. You can see in the street, people in Vietnamese speak Vietnamese and English very well. So I think that when you visit Vietnam, you will get a very warm welcome from Vietnamese people.
Okay, so I've got 3 very practical advice. One, the traffic in Vietnam is very different than in the US. So if you're gonna cross the street, just keep walking. Cars and motorcycles will go around you. But do not stop walking. You just have to keep walking, okay?
You have to walk in a
just
Same
straight
page.
line.
Same page. Don't do irregular page.
Yeah. The second is, I think if you're in the major cities, the taxis are probably your most reliable mode of transportation. It's going to cost you about $1 to go a mile, but make sure that you get in a taxi where the driver has his ID and his badge on the dashboard. Otherwise, it's a fake taxi, and it's going to run you like $20 a mile. Okay? That's the second. And then the third is, try a lot of the street food. It's really affordable, a couple dollars. It's really delicious, but it's its own culture in Vietnam. Like there is a street food culture there that is really amazing, and I encourage you to try it out.
That's better than restaurant.
Oh yeah, it's delicious. Yeah.
I may jump in, since I'm leading study abroad programs to Vietnam too, and also in response to the earlier question there. What I tell my students is, yes, our program is in part historical study that focuses on war and the legacies of war, but I tell my students, don't let the war define Vietnam for you. Vietnam is a country, it's not a war. And I think that I think is a very basic advice. Embrace the country for what it is, the culture, the food, the traffic, the fake taxis. The first thing I do with my students when we land in Hanoi is we go to have an opening lunch, and we cross the street and we go to the Temple of Literature, because one thing in Vietnamese culture that is central is the thousands of year-long tradition of honoring education. And I think that is, Chu Van An.
Yeah.
That is something to really discover in Vietnam, how much culture and high culture plays a role in everyday life now.
In Vietnamese culture, they very respect the teacher. Every day, every year they have a teacher day, and in Vietnam it's very funny. By the time I was born, I grew up. Every time the parent like a middle of autumn like that, the parent always have a cake and everything bring for the teacher, show up the thankful for teaching the children, and the New Year too. So that is a very rich culture country, and respect. In Vietnam, the kid very respect parents. The parents say whatever they will listen to because the parents support them until they go to finish the college. That's the reason the Vietnamese culture is rich and great, but they are changing now because the new culture in and something the people think that too old-fashioned, something is new. So even that one between the Vietnamese and Vietnamese, we have a conflict too, and then I hope that we make a judgment, myself, I make something good, I learn, and something that I don't think that no good, I forget about.
There's one last question that here in the second row.
Yeah.
And we have just time for that last question.
Well, okay, so. Well, I liked what you said about Vietnam being an abstraction, because I'm an immigrant from Vietnam, and it's a bit of an abstraction for me because I left when I was 2. And then I'm thinking about my kids, and it's a bit more of an abstraction, this idea of being Vietnamese somewhat. And I'm just wondering if there's any advice on how to reconnect with their culture for my kids, and even a little bit for myself. So,
How old are they?
Out there, 12, 10, and 8.
Oh, that's too bad. I was going to say they can enroll in our preschool. They're too old, though.
You have a Vietnamese-speaking preschool?
Yeah, so a couple years ago, we opened the first, and I think it's still the only Vietnamese-English dual-language preschool in the Seattle area.
What's his name?
It's called Hoa Mai, the Hoa Mai preschool. Hoa Mai is a very recognizable flower in Vietnam, that yellow flower. But that aside, there are a lot of different cultural events throughout the year. For example, the Lunar New Year. Actually, right now is the Mid-Autumn, that Trung Thu, which is the Mid-Autumn festival in Vietnam. So there are a lot of different cultural festivals I don't know all of them, all of the dates off the top of my head, but I'm happy to connect with you after for that information. Any other thoughts, Thoa?
Yeah. I think that, you should bring your children go to the Vietnamese class, Vietnamese school. Many, they have it at temple, they have it Catholic church, they have like my school example. From that, they learn a lot of Vietnamese culture, and that every time we have any kind of festival like that, we always take the kids so they can learn, and learn the culture, learn the language, and they make some new friends, Vietnamese friends together. So I think that's the way. So they will keep the old culture. Many books available at the public library too. When they can read Vietnamese, they can speak Vietnamese, they can go in there, you can borrow all kinds of books, the Vietnamese culture book in there. Thank you.
And I will add that I think the most valuable thing that parents or families can do is just explore the culture and the history and the language and the heritage together. I'm certainly not an expert on Vietnamese culture or even the history of Vietnam, but those are topics that, as I got older, I'm starting to learn together with my parents by having more conversations with them or spending more time with my sister. And I think that's what is really enriching for parents and for families. It is, while it's nice to expose our children to those celebrations and those festivals, I think it is a lot more meaningful and a lot more impactful and deeper to actually just share in those experiences with them as parent and child. Thoa?
I started our evening by saying that I was in awe of the biographies, resumes of our panelists, and now I say I'm even more in awe of them, having heard live from them, and I think we should thank them for their information. And once again, thank you to the Global Affairs Center and Larry Fuel, and also once again, thank you to Geraldine Brousseau and Peace Trees Vietnam that made this evening possible. And I believe that Larry, when he has turned off his phone, will have some last-minute remarks.
I'm on now. I just want to say thank you again to the panel and give them another round of applause. Both the panel and the moderator. And we do have, I know you mentioned it at the start, but Peace Tree Vietnam was extremely important to me, and Geraldine in particular was important to me in putting this idea together, I think, last spring, and she suggested some folks that I ought to try to recruit for this, and it's all paid off. Do you want to say a little bit about what Peace Tree Vietnam is?
I'm Geraldine Brousseau. I live on Bainbridge Island, and Edmonds is my hometown, so I'm pretty close to home here. I wanted to share with you that the work of Peace Trees Vietnam grew out of a family experience to my American family, as many American families were impacted, as our Vietnamese friends were impacted during the war in Vietnam. In 1995, we reached out to the Vietnamese people in an effort to begin to build bridges of trust by recognizing the losses on all the sides, the tremendous losses to the Vietnamese people and the losses to Americans. And as that basis that we could begin working together in humanitarian efforts. We work in Quang Tri Province, Vietnam, in the very center of the country. It was and remains the most war-torn province of the country. And we clear landmines and bombs from former battlegrounds. Vietnamese deminers clear every day unexploded ordnance remaining from the war that is still endangering the lives of children and families every day. We've just cleared our 105,000th bomb in about 22 years. And a good part of our work is founded in the building of the relationships, deepening our understanding with one another, with Vietnamese and American people, finding ways to connect with our common language. And as Kim Long said, love. Really, it's love that can begin to heal. We work in Quang Tri province, as I mentioned. We work today with the very same people we started with 22 years ago. And the sense of family there is very strong. Christophe has played a major role in building what we call citizen diplomacy. We take trips of volunteers. We've taken 61 delegations now of Americans and Vietnamese-Americans to Vietnam to volunteer and learn about life in the aftermath of war. I brought a few sheets. I think maybe we passed them around over there on the table. Yeah. So I'll show this to you so you'll have an idea. But this says a little bit about the work of Peace Trees Vietnam. If you're interested, it's a 501c3, like a philanthropic organization, humanitarian by nature. And especially, I would just like to let you know that in the light of this conversation regarding the Vietnam War documentary, on the 24th of October, we're hosting our anniversary luncheon in Seattle. I put invitations on the table. They look like this. There's a D-minor on the cover and a woman growing coffee at Quezon. And at that luncheon, we will feature a discussion with the consulting producer, Benjamin Wilkinson, of the Vietnam War documentary. He is an American who is an academic expert on Vietnam, and he led the way for Ken Burns to include the Vietnam experience. And he was present on the ground for all the shooting of the film and footage and interviews in Vietnam. So if these are interesting things to you, we'd invite you to join us. There are more invitations on the table. And thank you, Larry. Thank you, Christophe, and Kim Long, and Toa, and James. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Geraldine.